Inside this little package is a piece of technology that was invented over 100 years ago, but is still being used today in some very interesting applications. It's called a vacuum tube, specifically a diode. Inside this glass bulb is a partially evacuated tube with two electrical connections on the top and a metal plate on the bottom. But that's it, no electronics at all. So how does this thing work, and why is it still being used today? Well, when the electrical connections are made, high voltage electricity flows through this tube from the top connection to the bottom plate. But wait, there's no electricity in a vacuum, so this isn't like a normal electrical circuit. This high voltage electricity is actually in the form of a beam of electrons. The bottom plate is positively charged, so these electrons flow towards it. And when they hit the plate, they transfer their energy to it, causing it to heat up. In fact, it gets so hot that it glows red and eventually even white hot. The top of the tube is usually covered with a metal mesh that allows some of this light to pass through, while also acting as a shield to prevent electrical interference from outside the tube. If we put our thermometer on the plate, we can see that it's currently around 23 degrees Celsius. But after a few moments, it reaches around 90 degrees. That's a pretty impressive temperature difference, considering the only other heat source nearby is this tiny 100-watt light bulb. By comparison, if we put our thermometer near the light bulb itself, we only see a very small temperature increase of about 3 degrees. The amount of heat generated by this tube is actually quite surprising. At its peak, it was generating around 60 watts of heat, which is more than the light bulb itself. And this heat is produced in a very small area, just this little metal plate here. So it could be used to produce a lot of heat very quickly. In fact, these were originally invented as a way to amplify radio signals, and they still used for that purpose today. They also used in high-power applications, such as in microwave tubes, where they reused to generate high-power microwaves for radar systems, and in some medical imaging equipment. But they have another use which might surprise you. These days, vacuum tubes are actually used in some high-end audio amplifiers. And that might seem weird, since they were basically superseded by transistors in the 1960s. And unlike transistors, vacuum tubes are bulky, expensive, and require a lot of maintenance. But surprisingly, some people actually prefer the sound produced by vacuum tube amplifiers. They tend to produce a warmer sound with more harmonics, which some people prefer. They're also very simple to manufacture and have a very long lifespan. If you take good care of them, they can last for thousands of hours. Nowadays, most of the vacuum tubes used in amplifiers are actually a type of vacuum tube called a trivinode, which has 3 electrical connections instead of just 2. The extra connection allows the tube to amplify as well as rectify, meaning it can take an input signal and amplify it while also converting it from alternating current to direct current. This means that a single vacuum tube can perform multiple functions, which makes them very useful in audio amplifiers. Here's an example of a simple audio amplifier using a triode vacuum tube. When the input signal is applied, it causes the plate to heat up and glow red. And if we put our thermometer on it, we can see that it reaches around 70 degrees Celsius. Although this is nowhere near as hot as the other tube we saw earlier. The heat produced by this tube is enough to change the resistance of this nearby resistor, which alters the output signal. Of course, vacuum tubes aren't the only way to amplify sound. In fact, transistors are much more efficient and produce less heat. But that might actually be a good thing, because vacuum tubes have a very distinct sound that some people prefer. And unlike transistors, they're very simple to manufacture and have a very long lifespan. For these reasons, vacuum tubes are still being used today in some high-end audio amplifiers. If you like optimistic science and tech stories, subscribe for more.